2023 is the year of everyone complaining about everything but not doing anything to change their circumstance. We all love to complain about how America is so awful, yet no one's ever gonna leave.
And don't forget to go when you leave.
Disney's case, everyone in the cast of the new live-action version of Snow White is just talking crap about it, but they're still making a live-action version of it. So why? In March of 2024, Disney will be releasing their live action of Snow White, starring Rachel Zegler as Snow White and Gail Gadot as the evil queen. And I have to say, these two women have literally no good things to say about the original 1937 version, and they also actively talk about the fact that their version of Snow White is going to be nothing like the original. Rachel Zegler even talks about how the original scared her.
I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious. I watched it once and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures. Doesn't sound like something a little kid would like. Was terrified of it. Never revisited Snow White again.
You probably shouldn't be casting people who don't like the movie at all. But honestly, I could care less about if the actor just wants a job and they want to be in a movie. Rachel Zegler isn't even a very big A-list actor. She recently just got a big break being starred as Maria in West Side Story, and this really is only her second big film. So you could say that she's learning the ropes of production and interviews and being in the public eye, and that this was simply just a little bit of a word fumble that she had. But it didn't just happen once. It's happened over and over and over again with all of her interviews. So from what we can tell about this movie so far, from the press tour that Rachel and Gail have both been a part of, is that the prince is no longer a main character in the movie, which he really wasn't from the animation to begin with, but this is mostly going to be surrounding the evil queen and Snow White's relationship. But I have to say, these two leading ladies have nothing nice to say about the original film at all. In fact, they have some pretty harsh opinions about it to begin with. Snow White is not my favorite Disney princess by any means, but I will definitely defend her to the woke mob, considering that that was the movie that gave Disney its start into society in the first place.
Reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago. And therefore, it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power.
Okay, I have to say, Snow White in the original 1937, you guys have to remember, the chick was 14 years old. Her father married. She had a stepmom. Her stepmom despised her so much that she put 2 assassination attempts on a 14-year-old, both of which this 14-year-old survived. So as far as powerful female heroines go, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the 14-year-old that survived literal assassination attempts and surviving in a dark fantasy would, I would say that's pretty empowering for feminists today. But it seems like woke actors in Hollywood have different opinions on what is considered a strong female lead. If they're not bashing men, I guess they're not strong at all. You know, the internet never agrees on anything, but we actually are all in agreement right now that Rachel Zegler has nothing nice to say about the Snow White movie, and they're changing it to the point of where it's no longer Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs anymore. Rachel Zegler sort of came out of nowhere. This is really only her second large film. She had starred in West Side Story back in 2021, and she was actually the lead in it. She played Maria, and I personally thought that that was a really beautiful movie. It brought out my inner theater kid, and it made me super happy, and she seemed like a pretty nice girl, and she was paid $500,000 for the movie, which, I mean, let's be honest now, that's a lot of money in this day and age. That's a lot of people's salaries for 5, 10 plus years, let's be honest now. But hearing her say this,
if I'm gonna stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
She came out of nowhere and she's already demanding more money. It shows a lot about her character, if you ask me.
What do you have to say?
This!
What do you deserve?
I deserve this.
Even if somebody as big as, let's say, Robert Downey Jr., who played literally Tony Stark, said something like this, I would call him just as smug, condescending, and a little narcissistic. But because it's coming from an actor who literally just came on the scene 5 minutes ago, It's not exactly giving her a good reputation to the start of her movie and TV show career. So never mind that the lead starring actors in this film have nothing nice to say about it. Let's talk about the absolute epic fail that is their costuming. So pictures from the set were released like 6-10 months ago, but everybody passed them off as gag costumes, cover costumes, if you will, to divert attention and to give them the publicity that they needed, just like with Sonic the Hedgehog creepy humanistic teeth. But I gotta say, it's been confirmed that these are the legitimate costumes from the movie. And let's not even ignore the fact that, let's not even touch on the fact that Snow White looks like she got her dress from a Spirit Halloween, and the cape was drapes that they tied a ribbon around the neck of. Let's look at not the 7 dwarfs, but instead the 8 magical creature costumes that look like they just robbed a Old Navy and Hollister and are gonna do a music video for Fall Out Boy. And you might be like, Savannah, costumes, that's really the best you have to complain about? Yes, actually I do, because I'm a seamstress myself. All I do is make Disney princess costumes for my job, which is to go to birthday parties and events and dress up like Disney princess characters. If I had Disney's budget for a movie, if I had a quarter of their costuming budget, I can make a costume 10 times better than the trash that they pulled out of their behind. These are multi-million-dollar productions, and you're really telling me that they couldn't come up with something better than this? It's pretty obvious that Disney is officially running out of ideas because they just keep making live-action versions of animations. But that's not the point. We already have a live-action version of Snow White. Not 1, but 2. And this is a hill that I am willing to die on, because my personal favorite movie that has ever come out is a movie called Mirror Mirror that came out in 2012. Mirror Mirror was a fantasy film that was starring Julia Roberts and Lily Collins, and it was a cinematic masterpiece, and that is a hill that I am willing to die on. The acting was phenomenal. The plot line was phenomenal. Their take on it was beautiful. I'm not gonna spoil the entire film, but this movie actually took Snow White, the 1937 version, gave it a beautiful modern twist while still respecting the original. And I have to say, the costumes from this movie, you cannot top them. It is my life goal one day to make her blue and orange dress from this movie when I save up enough money for it. But I just have to say, this movie was amazing, phenomenally great. I literally will rave about this for forever. The dwarves in it. Let's talk about that for a minute. So we've gone from in 2012, where Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs was this amazing cinematic masterpiece, to 2023, when apparently Snow White is no longer with her 7 dwarf friends, but instead the 8 magical creatures. All in the name of being politically correct and bending to the woke mob. So Disney responded to people's concerns and said, quote, "To avoid reinforcing stereotypes from the original animated film, we are taking a different approach with these 7 characters and have been consulting with members of the dwarfism community." By not giving little people the roles at all? Does anyone else see the hypocrisy in that? But oh wait, the only person, the little person I should say, that they hired ended up being Peter Dinklage. So Peter Dinklage, who is one of the world's most famous little people actors to this date, mostly because of his role of Tyrone Lannister in Game of Thrones, had this to say about the original Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs movie.
You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that fucking backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man?
First of all, Peter, the 7 dwarves never even lived in a cave. They lived in a cute little cottage in the woods, just like a whole bunch of other Disney princesses to this day. What harmful stereotypes did the original movie perpetuate in the first place? They were just 7 friends that lived together, that owned their own business, sang some happy-go-lucky songs while they did it, mined for gems, came back home, and then did it all over again out of their own free will and volition. Oh, and then when this chick ends up, like sleeping in their house, they're like, yeah, we'll let you stay here. We're gonna be a good Samaritan. We'll help you out. Oh, your evil stepmother is trying to kill you? We got you. Come stay with us. And they go back to work, and they come back home, and she had cleaned their house and cooked food for them without them even asking. She did that all on her own. What stereotype does that perpetuate? And I gotta say, what's harmful about someone being a good Samaritan to a 14-year-old girl when she's on the run from a homicidal maniac? Peter Dinklage has said that this movie is very harmful against little people's stereotypes and that it is cruel to them. But yet he gets to be the only little person to star in this movie at all, which he's caused a lot of controversy in the Dwarven and Little People community because of what he said, but then his hypocrisy of getting to be in it in the first place. Another very famous little person actor and WWE superstar, Dylan Postal, said that if a dwarf just dreams of being an actor and in a Disney film, then this role is made for them. You're taking these roles of not just one, but 7 little people away because you feel like we have to make progression. And I get it. Hollywood is trying to fill every quota that they possibly can, which can be difficult when there are a lot of minority communities there already. And one of them definitely is the dwarfism and the little people community. So their excuse might be, well, there are not that many A-list, B-list, or even C or D-list actors that have dwarfism that we can cast. Well, you know what I have to say to that? That is a BS freaking lie. Mirror Mirror had 7 fantastic actors that had dwarfism, and they did a phenomenal job. And even if they went out of their way to just cast a few of them, at least it would be Snow White and the few dwarfs if they didn't go for the full 7. You took away one of the most iconic roles for people that have dwarfism and little people, and you gave it to normal people. If that doesn't go against everything that you guys stand for with being woke and inclusive, then I don't know what does. Snow White, that is coming out in 2024, has already left a very disgusting taste in people's mouths for many different reasons. But the one that I think is the most important, particularly to me, is the fact that there is no more happily ever afters, true love, princes, or fairy tales at all in this movie. Because in the name of creating strong female heroines, we've decided to get rid of everything that a lot of women these days want. We've become so focused on creating these perfect female characters that have no flaws, they can do it on their own, they don't need a man, and they're just perfect in every sense of the word, that we've forgotten that that's not every single woman today. Not everyone wants to go take over a kingdom or fight all these hard battles or conquer and slay the dragons. Sometimes, and I know this might be a crazy thing for people to believe, sometimes it's nice to be able to turn on a movie and to see fairy tales and true love's kiss, because that's not the world that we live in today, sadly. And that's what a lot of women really wanted to see in Snow White, but I don't think we're going to be able to see it all. Personally, this is what I think that the Barbie movie actually did a really good job of portraying. That not every Barbie wants to go win the Nobel Prize or be a lawyer or a doctor or go to the moon. Sometimes we just want to be like ordinary Barbie. The one that's not going to always be extraordinary and do all these crazy, amazing things, but just lives our lives to the best of our abilities given the circumstances that we have. And as far as Snow White goes, they're not doing that anymore, and that's why a lot of women are really upset about it. If you want to hear my full controversial take about the Barbie movie with Margot Robbie, that'll be a separate video. But on this, I truly do hope that everything that Rachel and Gail and Peter have been talking about with the 1937 version and their 2023 version really does end up being a complete diversion, and that it is a beautiful story about happily ever afters and fairy tales and true love's kiss and princes, because we live in a very dark and awful world today, and I do think it would be cool to turn on a live action movie of one of the most classic characters and movies that Walt Disney ever wrote and see that it really does have that magic that Disney has been famous for writing in the first place. Because in 2023, I definitely think we could all use a little bit more of a happily ever after.